Good morning and welcome to our September 2020 customer webinar. I'm Aaron Gillette, Marketing Director at Town News. Well, the 2020 presidential election is just around the corner. Whether that makes you feel excited or depressed, angry or ambivalent will depend on where you fall on the political spectrum. But I think that everyone on this call will agree that the public needs timely, accurate coverage of the election and the issues surrounding it. Or maybe you won't agree with that. It's 2020 after all. Regardless, Christine Masters is here to share tips and best practices for covering election 2020 using BLOX CMS and other products and services from the Town News ecosystem. And we're extremely excited to welcome a special guest. Nick Sanchez, Director of Syndication at the Real Clear Foundation, will introduce you to the Real Clear Wire and show how you can incorporate their free high-quality news and opinion into your site using the Town News Content Exchange. So make sure that you stick around all the way till the end for that. The presentation will take about 30 minutes and you can type questions in at any time, but we'll wait to answer them at the end of the presentation. With that, take it away, Christine.
Hello, thank you very much. So just a really quick note, the reason why we're doing this presentation, kind of like Aaron alluded to, we know that times are very crazy right now. 2020 is a crazy year. Every year gets crazier. And we know that, there's a lot going on with the pandemic and advertising and everything that's happening today. And we know that the news, however, does not stop. And you got to keep covering it and got to keep up with everything. So we just felt like we were going to kind of utilize the vast resources that our company has and reach out to a lot of our colleagues and our certain clients and just try to gather up resources for you to give you some ideas about things to do and hopefully spark some ideas of ways to improve your coverage and ways to use BLOX tools to help your election coverage. So we're really excited about bringing you this information today. Just a couple quick things that we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about actually using table assets to update table data throughout the night if you're doing kind of by hand election tabular results. We're going to talk about using some external services to display interactive maps and graphs and charts and how to embed those into your site. We actually are going to be talking a little bit about Town News Content Exchange and how you can use those articles, images, and videos to supplement your homegrown coverage. And as Aaron mentioned, the addition of Real Clear Wire to that content and how you can add that to your site. It's a great new resource. How to keep your visitors engaged with notifications, with embedded content, with infographics, and how to even reach them on social media and when they're outside off of your site. And then again, one of my favorite blocks is the update block. We've actually talked about this in previous webinars, but we'll talk about that a little bit again and just show kind of how that works and how it's a great way to show updated data on your site. So let's get started. First off, I'm going to talk about using some of the BLOX tools to show election data and election content and really showcase that on your site, and how you can use the BLOX design tools to really build out and highlight that information on your site. So first off, this is pretty straightforward, but just creating a specialized homepage dedicated to election information will really help draw attention to that election information. I know a lot of people still have a big COVID presence on their front page. So how you share space between the election and COVID information is going to be kind of an editorial decision that you'll have to talk about. But one thing to think about is, especially on election day and a couple of days after the election itself, as you're adding additional information and additional coverage of the election, you can actually use a schedule in the BLOX system to create an alternate homepage that is only activated during a specific time frame. So it's really easy to do. You just go into the block editor and you create a new schedule, and then you can kind of design that page and then set the time parameters for when you want that to be active on your site. It's a real easy way to create an alternate homepage without messing around with a lot of blocks that you want to be there permanently. And this way you can create an alternate homepage and come back to your standard page. Alternatively, you can actually place new blocks onto your standard homepage and just deactivate them until you need to be able to use them later. So that's another good technique, depending on how much information you're going to be adding to that homepage. Another thing that I wanted to mention is, this is just kind of a personal favorite technique of mine, is having kind of a graphic that will tie all the information together. You can see that we have one up here on the top of the page. This is just something, this is using an image block, and it's just pulling that image onto the page. This can be added to the home page. It can be added to if you're creating a section page for the election. And even if you have a special election section where you're going to file all that information into that section, you can actually add this to all the stories in that section as well. So it's just a nice way to tie everything together. And if anyone's interested in having a copy of this particular graphic, feel free to send us an email to cmasters@townnews.com, and I can share this graphic with you if you're interested in using that, or if that helps you. Another really quick tip, and again, we've talked about this in the past before in our breaking news webinar from, I think it's actually a couple years ago, but it's still a really good webinar. This is called the editorial full article block. And this is something that you can actually put on the front page and have kind of a scrolling list of updates that you can add to the homepage, and it shows inline assets as well. So if you have multiple photos on there and you want to create kind of a homepage story that tells all the different aspects that are happening with the election on that day, the editorial full article block is a great one to use for that. I would also recommend, there's something called a hammer headline, and this is available in the other tab on the article itself. And then you can have this big kind of impact headline to really tell the story of what's happening on that day. So this is a great way to kind of showcase and make big breaking news that happens on your homepage. So I mentioned already the updates block. I love this block. So the way that this works is that you pull in the articles on a specific topic, just like any other kind of block where you say, I want to pull everything from the news section, or I want to pull everything with a headline of politics or a keyword of politics, and then you sort it by sort it by recency. So the most recent things sort to the top. And then what happens is that the block itself, first off, these little circles will kind of pulse to show that it's kind of happening right now. These are live updates, and things that are within the last hour, that they've been posted within the last hour, will get a red circle, where ones that are older than an hour have a gray circle. So it really helps communicate to the readers that these are the important new things that just broke, that are breaking now, and it helps kind of give them an interactive display of the things that are happening live on the site. But the really cool thing about this block is that when new items are posted, and the block will check every couple of minutes to see if there's new content available. When there's new content available, it actually brings up a little button that says 2 new items available, click here to refresh. And basically when the user clicks there to refresh, that specific block refreshes, not the whole page, but that specific block refreshes with the new information. We did it that way, as opposed to updating automatically. We did it that way to make sure that if they're in the middle of reading something, for example, on the front page or on a section page, the page doesn't refresh and change on them and change where they're at in the scroll. So this way they can be in charge of when they're ready to see the new information, they can click, see the new information without reloading the whole page. So it's a really nice way to interact. It's a very mobile friendly. It works great on mobile. That button that says refresh is very mobile friendly. So this is a great way. And then this works for any kind of coverage that you're doing. If you're covering a court case or even just day-to-day coverage, this is a great block to use. I also wanted to point out another kind of favorite thing of mine. There's a special feature available in the block setup, and this is actually available on most of our card blocks. It's called the overline feature, and the overline feature will create just a little kind of overline on top of the block itself. And in this case, I didn't have a title showing on the block. This is just using the overline, so I'm kind of using the overline as the title. But I set a red background to my overline and then a light text. And then I actually chose a fire icon. There's a bunch of different icons you can choose as part of the overline setup that creates this really nice little graphic. So You can use this in combination with a title, in combination with other features to kind of build the type of update that you want there. And so there's a lot of really nice things that you can do with that block. I also wanted to point out, and this is something that is a very important feature, and something that if you don't already know about this, it's definitely a great thing to know about. We have a lot of cache built into our system, and this protects us from heavy traffic and flash traffic and DDoS attacks and things like that. And so when we get traffic coming in, we have a cache that protects your site from going down due to traffic spikes, things like that. However, sometimes when you have the page cached, it's frustrating because you want to get that breaking news out as soon as possible, and you're trying to see it on your site, but it's still cached. So what we've done is we created kind of a special loophole for breaking news on your front page, so that if you have a block that is set up with a breaking news flag, or there's a couple other different types of alert flags, if we see those on the page, we'll break that cache faster than we do on a normal front page with normal news. So again, this is something where if you want to find out more information about this, or you want to check to make sure your site is set up the way to utilize this feature, then please feel free to send us a support ticket, and we can just kind of check your site and make sure that everything's set up for this. But this is a great way to ensure that when the readers come to the front page, that they're seeing that fast breaking news, and it updates in just a couple of seconds on that particular breaking news block instead of a couple of minutes. So that's a great thing to know as well. It's great for breaking news in general, as well as during election coverage. I already kind of mentioned this, but we would also recommend creating a special URL to aggregate and consolidate all of your election coverage. This might be in addition to having special blocks pulled out onto the front page to highlight the election coverage during the election day. But creating a URL for this is a great idea. For one thing, when you're talking about this on social media, in a broadcast, or in a print piece, you can tell people for more coverage, go to our website.com/election2020. And then that's a great way to kind of consolidate that information, promote that to social media. Any partners that you have, ask them to link to that URL, and it helps gain SEO for that specific URL, and you can drive traffic there. And this would just be a great place to aggregate all of that content for your site. Also think about, whenever you're talking about this in social media, try to have a hashtag strategy for what you're going to be sending out in various social media, Twitter posts and Facebook posts. Try to think ahead of time if there's a national hashtag that you want to participate in, and or you can do both. Create a hashtag for your own local coverage. If there's a specific thing going on in Oregon, for example, and you want to have, hashtag Oregon election 2020, then think of that ahead of time so that you can promote that to your staff and make sure that all of their tweets and all of the news that they send out are promoting that hashtag, so that you can help get people to start watching that hashtag and responding to that hashtag. So if you don't have a strategy ahead of time for that, and everyone's using different hashtags, then obviously it doesn't work as well. Another thing that we wanted to mention that I think is just a great idea, and this is kind of an example of this, if you create a special section just for the elections, you can actually use our search block to place on that specific page. And in the parameters for that search block, you can limit it so that it only searches certain sections. So in this case, you can say, you can put a search block on that section page, but only have it searching the politics section. So that way, if somebody comes into the site and they just want to find out about Proposition 189, and they can just type in Prop 189 and then just get results just about Prop 89, as opposed to anything else that might be in other sections or in other areas. So that's just a really nice way to feature that and to add that. And then lastly, I just wanted to mention, when you do add these special URLs, those of you who have our special BLOX Now application for iPhones and for Android, you can actually, on your own, create a new section in the BLOX Now application and actually link to it in the Now app, in the navigation inside the Now app, and create an election section in the Now app just on the fly at the same time as when you're creating it in Blocks. It's really easy. You just add a new section in the Now app section and then add navigation to it. And again, if you need help doing that, just let us know and we can help you walk through that. But this is another great way to make sure that if you do have a special place, you can actually talk about elections. You can add that to the Now app as well. And of course, you can have people sign up for push notifications to get that election coverage that goes directly to your Now app. So it's a really great feature of the Now app that you can create those special sections so easily. Last but not least, let's talk about ads for a second. We want to make sure, obviously, when you're adding all this new content to your page, you're adding in new stuff to the front page, you're adding in a new URL covering elections, make sure that you think about ad monetization and ad placement throughout that content. Really think about mobile and how those ads are placed on mobile, because probably especially for elections, a majority of your traffic is going to come from mobile. So make sure you're looking at the site in mobile. What I would recommend is kind of putting together the page and how you want those content blocks to look at it on mobile, and then intersperse ad positions in a reasonable manner throughout the content. You don't want to have them all at the bottom. You don't want to have them all at the top. You want to try to intersperse them every several screens on the mobile application or on the mobile website. So it's really easy to do this. And again, if you need help doing this, let us know. But whether you're using Google Ad Manager or BLOX Ad Manager, you can very easily just add a new ad block to your site inside of the content, between the content blocks on your page. So if it's on the front page, if it's on a section page, you can just add a new block in there, create a special position, and then just make sure that either programmatic or local advertising is interspersed throughout that content. And then again, I would review it on mobile and just make sure that as you're scrolling down the page, every 2 or 3 screens, you're seeing a new ad so that you're monetizing that content as they're scrolling down the page. And again, it's really easy to do. Just don't make sure that you don't forget about the monetization. So now we're going to talk a little bit about news coverage. Again, I reached out to some of our partners and I just talked about some things that they were doing this year, some new ideas that they had, some old ideas that they had that are working really well right now. So I'm just going to share with you some of those ideas just to spark some new ideas for you guys. So first off, using table data on your site. This is pretty straightforward. If you haven't used the BLOX table asset previously, we do have a table asset that allows you to type in and display tabular data. This is kind of an example of that. You have different columns that you can populate, and then you populate all the different rows. We actually have the ability to upload a CSV file. So if you are working with kind of an external provider, or maybe your state or county is sending you a CSV of that information, try to upload that as a CSV. You might want to try to, clean it up ahead of time, make sure there's no extraneous columns or weird stuff in there, and then just upload it as a CSV. You can assign out what the columns are, add headers to them, and then, modify that data or, change the rows or whatever you need to do once you upload it. So it's really great for displaying that kind of information if you're getting it that way. You also might be getting a, let's say there's you're watching a certain website. Let's say you have 3 different local races that you're covering, and you're watching a website on the county web page in order to gather that information as they're posting it, and you're just kind of copying the results over. The table asset is a great way to do that. You just have the table asset up on your page. You can have multiple assets open at one time, and then just manually update that data as if you're getting a phone call, or if you're getting that from a web page, you can just copy that over. And we'll talk about some other ways to do that later on as well as we get that. Another really great way to use external services within BLOX is to create a Twitter list. This is a feature of Twitter where Twitter allows you to create a list of specific Twitter accounts that you want to follow for this Twitter list. And then you can actually create an embed from Twitter and then plug that into BLOX. You can either do this as an HTML asset, and that's basically a standalone feature that you can link to, or you can create an HTML asset and then embed it inside of an article and then just show the Twitter list that way. So this is kind of an example of what that would look like. This is really great because it updates on the fly. So as people are watching this page and new content is created, this list will actually bump down and new content will pop in at the top automatically. It's just a really great way to, if you have the county Twitter account or the state Twitter account, the election board Twitter account, maybe it's other news coverage in your area, the TV station, the newspaper. This way you can kind of aggregate all of that content and have it come onto a single Twitter list. And that will be a great place for your readers to follow, your users to follow, so that they can see all of the coverage in one place. So it's just a really nice feature. Again, you can make sure that you're only following the news sources that you agree with. So you don't have to, if there's people that are sketchy or a blogger or something, you don't have to have those people on your list. It's only the accounts that you want. So you don't have the danger of somebody taking over a hashtag or something like that, which sometimes happens. So this way you can have only approved accounts. And this is just a really great way to show the freshest news and updated news throughout the day on election day or even several days afterwards. Another really great idea, and this is something again that a lot of people are doing, but really look at fact checking as people make claims throughout the campaigns. You are a great source to really dig into that and talk about why this is true or not true or somewhere in between. Especially if this is a local story where someone says, yeah, I signed the Oregon bill in 2012. You, as an Oregon publication, can really be the authority on that and fact check whether or not that is true. Did they sign that bill in that time? Were they the first person to sign the bill or the first person to talk about it? You are an authority in that area and are a great person to be able, or a great news source to be able to fact check that and really flesh out the nuances of some of the claims that are being made by the candidates. So this is a really great way to, again, try to list the different claims that they're talking about and then talk about whether or not that claim is true. Another good thing you can think about is a roundup of all of the different content that might be out there today and creating a collection of maybe today's election stories, this week's election stories, and then embedding that collection at the bottom of other election stories to try to generate additional page views. So again, that's a really easy thing to do. Just create a collection and then add that collection as related content on your other election stories. Another great idea, I looked through a couple of different sites, and this example is from the Idaho Press, where they sent out a survey to their local candidates with a lot of questions. I know a lot of people do this, it's a great idea. And it just asked them kind of, what is your experience? What is your reason for running? What are your main issues? What are your main stances? And what do you hope to accomplish when you're elected? And all of them can respond to that. And then you put them together into a specific race summary or a race drill down. And in this case, they're showing their pictures and their contact information, their social media. And it really is a great presentation to voters who are looking for more information, especially about local candidates who we never hear about. This is a great way to present that information to them and give them some information that they can use to help make a better decision about voting. This is also a great example of including a sidebar using the related content feature to create related content info boxes. And you can just say, when you're just information about voter information, where you can vote, when you can vote, what the time is, etc., just to provide additional information and help to those voters to help get them to the polls and to help make sure that they know what's going on and where to go to vote, etc. So you can add additional links in there, resources, etc. And that's just a really great thing to add to your content to make sure that readers get the most information that they can. Collections are a great way to show this information as well. There's something called a series collection that will show you, it has kind of these dots on the side to show the different items that are in that series. And then this can be just a news article that you publish to the front page that says, you know, this week's news articles, or, you know, election this week, and then just highlight the main stories from this week in chronological order that you think are important for them to know. Things to know today, things to know this week. You can also do photo galleries of images from the campaign trail. These are things that a lot of times come over AP or might come through the Town News Content Exchange, and you can just create really nice photo galleries just showing all the different things, because this is a crazy year with the pandemic happening. What does the campaign trail look like now? What is, when they come to, I'm going to use Oregon again for some reason, I'm on an Oregon kick today. When they come to Oregon to give a campaign speech or a stump speech, what does that look like? What is how many people were there? If the politician is giving a speech, turn around and see what does the crowd look like. You know, those are really interesting things to show in this day and age and in this particular campaign. This is kind of obvious, but poll assets. We have a poll asset that's really easy to create. You can ask how people are feeling about the election. Maybe ask kind of a slightly off-topic, you know, not just who you're going to vote for, but maybe how do you feel about a specific thing that happened, or how do you feel about a specific news story? That poll can be featured on the front page. It can also be embedded into articles so that as they're reading a specific article, you can have a poll at the top or at the bottom of that specific article saying, you know, now that you read this article, how do you feel about this specific topic? Are you in favor of this? Are you against this? And you can get some really interesting information from the users. Not scientific, of course, but something that is just a great way to engage users and get information. And I mentioned this before, but we have something called BLOX Notifier for push notifications and automatic Twitter and Facebook posts. It's really great for something like elections, where you can set a specific rule for something like election coverage and just make sure that those particular articles and series collections and photo galleries are pushed out to the people that are interested in that data, whether it's the people who have already signed up for your daily headlines or your breaking news coverage, or if you're going to create a special sign up for something like breaking news and breaking election news, and then that way they can get all of that information and see coverage throughout the day. So creating a special sign up list for election breaking news coverage is something that you can do as well. And again, that's very easy to do with our BLOX Notifier application. So this is actually something that a lot of people use currently, using embedded and related content on articles, but we've actually got some new stuff related to this that I want to talk about for just 1 second. So first off, in BLOX, it's really easy to associate additional content for a particular topic. You can go, as you're creating an article, you can go into related content, add sibling articles, add inline articles. In this case here, this is kind of a good example where this is a sibling PDF document. They've pulled this PDF document inline inside the story and just linked to it so you can see like a little preview of that PDF. The user can actually download it if they're interested in that. This is another example where they've inlined a additional article, a sibling article. Again, that creates a little link with a little document icon that the user can click on and link to that specific article. Just recently, we just released a new feature as part of our inline links functionality. When you highlight some content, so let's say I highlighted this content here, and then you go to the link functionality inside of the text, the BLOX kind of text box area, you can now link to additional BLOX content that's already in your site, other assets on your site, and very easily just create a link directly to another BLOX article. So instead of having to search on your site to find the actual URL and then linking that as you would to an external URL, we now have in-site URL inline link functionality that works really well. It's much easier to do than it has been in the past. So we just published a blog post announcing this functionality a couple of weeks ago. So if you haven't seen that yet, you can probably just do a search for it on our site and or contact our customer support. We can help you find that feature. But it's a great new feature. It makes inline links really easy to do. And just again, one of the goals you should have in your articles is to make sure, especially on mobile, that every couple of screens you have additional engagement opportunities for that user, because we know that as they go down the page, as they're reading the article, they start dropping off and getting disinterested. So having additional photos, embedded PDFs, other links to other content, or inline links to other content, we know that you can generate additional links very easily by adding those engagement opportunities throughout the page itself. And that really helps create, again, trying to get additional page views to get those ad impressions to get more money. So that's kind of, we're trying to get information out there and also make money at the same time. So that's the goal there. So now just very briefly, we're going to talk about a couple of external sources and different applications that you can use. Very quickly, a couple of the resources that we talked to, a lot of local and state election boards are posting their content or their results on a web page. Ask them if you can just iframe that into your site. Easy, that's done. Now you don't have to update those throughout the day. So if they're doing something like that, check with them to see if it's okay to pull that onto your site. Then all you have to do is create just a little iframe, embed that into your site, and then that can be your numbers that you promote for that day. Real easy. We mentioned the Content Exchange already. If you're a member of the Content Exchange, this is a great resource of CNN videos, coverage from across the country of different local publications and local broadcasters who are covering local races. Great place to just do a quick search, find things that are related to your articles, and pull those in to really flesh out that local content. Again, we're going to talk a couple of minutes about Real Clear Politics, have a new functionality that's available in the Content Exchange that will also be able to really add to your national coverage of the election as well. There's a new website called datawrapper.de that is a great free application that you can use on your sites to showcase charts, maps, and other types of data. A lot of our customers and publishers are doing this now, so this is probably something that is familiar to a lot of you, but it's actually really easy to create one of these graphics, and then essentially you just create the graphic. Again, there's a basic pricing level that is free that you can do on your site. You enter the information, you choose the type of chart you want, you create an embed code for that map or for that chart, and then you can add it to your block site as an HTML block or as an HTML asset, and then show that either on the front page or in articles, and it's a great resource to use in addition to the table asset and tabular data. So now I'm going to pass it over to Nick, who is going to talk about the exciting new functionality that we have with Real Clear Wire.
Thank you, Christine. I really appreciate you bringing down to the webinar today. I'm here to talk about this great new resource for everyone on the Town News Content Exchange. Let's dive in. First off, my name is Nick Sanchez. I'm the Director of Syndication at Real Clear Foundation. And Real Clear Foundation is a nonprofit that works in partnership with Real Clear Media Group. So that means, our most famous brand being Real Clear Politics, as well as Real Clear Investigations, Real Clear Markets, Energy, World. All of these things are now available to you on the Content Exchange. So each day we pick a selection of our original articles, and we put those through our module, and they get onto the Content Exchange with a public domain picture. And so you should be able to see those right now as we speak. I put a few new ones on this morning, actually. And so what you'll find among the selection there is Real Clear Politics. So we have both reporting and opinion, usually national, sometimes state-based for those looking for local coverage. We have a seat at the White House, We have coverage of Capitol Hill, and like I said, you'll find both straight down the middle reporting. We have some scoops that we usually get, I'd say on a weekly basis, coming out of the White House, and then we have opinion on those scoops and on the trending topics of the day. Real Clear Investigations is a newer effort for us. That's a few years old. That's a long-form investigative journalism effort, and you'll see there sometimes the articles are a couple thousand words. Oftentimes we're doing shorter summary pieces as well that may be a little bit more friendly to publications that may have word count and space restraints. And then, of course, rounding out all of that is the more topical stuff, policy, markets, world, defense, history, books, you name it. There's probably something that we cover. And we found that over the years that these have been proven subject areas that people are interested in, and I'm sure they'll match up with a lot of the sections that you have in your own publications. When you're browsing the Real Clear content on the Content Exchange, you'll see that there's attribution already added in, and so you don't need to worry about that. And then you'll also find that there's a public domain picture provided. I understand a lot of people have their own photo databases, whether it be AP or Getty or whatever it may be. And absolutely, we are happy to have you choose a photo that's more appropriate for your audience. But we do have a default public domain picture on each story for your convenience for you to use. And that's really the gist of it. It's pretty simple. We're offering free content. We want to round out people's national coverage, and I'm available anytime, any day. I'm reachable at wire@realclearfoundation.com. Again, my name is Nick, and I look forward to working with all of you. And I'll hand it back to Christine now. Thank you, Christine.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Just go to the next page here. All right, and yeah, we're really excited about Real Clear Wire. If you look at a lot of the media bias charts, they're one of the news resources that are considered to be center politics. So it's a nice centrist view of politics that you can add to kind of flesh things out of your site, flesh things out on your site. So that's a great new resource. I know that we're probably going to get a ton of people asking how to add this to your site, and it's really easy to do. If you want to add the Real Clear Wire to your site, you need to be a member of our Content Exchange already. So if you're not, you can sign up for that. It's free. And if you want to add the Real Clear Wire to your site, just feel free to send us a job ticket to our customer support team, and they can help you get started. There'll be a document basically on how to add that to your site. And they can help you do that if needed. So it's a really easy process. It's just basically a new content, a new syndication feed, and we can help you set that up. So it's a real easy thing to do. And it's a great way, again, to flesh out your local coverage, add additional national coverage. If you're using CNN and other sources, those are great ways to add additional coverage to your site as well. So we're super excited about that. Now we can open it up to questions.
Thanks, Christine. We do have a number of questions that have already been entered into the questions box. Now is a great time, if you haven't had a chance to do that and you have an outstanding question, go ahead and enter it. But in the meantime, I'll start working through what we've gotten so far. First question, can the Real Clear Wire stories be published in print?
Nick, can you answer that?
Yes, absolutely. We encourage both digital and print pickup and republication. As long as we're maintaining some sort of attribution back to Real Clear Wires, then we're absolutely happy to have you put it in print.
Okay. Another Real Clear question: how do we filter the Real Clear assets for an importer?
So that's kind of what I was just talking about, where you're setting up a specific importer coming into the site. If you contact our customer support team, they can show you our import kind of document that details how you can identify that content and how you can bring it into your site.
Okay. Can the updates block be used within the Town News Now or the BLOX Now app?
No, it's just a web block, but it is a mobile web friendly block. So theoretically, you could have a section of the site that showcases that particular block and link to that particular web page in the Now app. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, send in a ticket and I can go into that in more detail.
Okay. Is there a way to keep a scheduled layout for more than one day? We've always struggled with carrying over a scheduled layout past midnight.
Yeah, a schedule can be, I'm just going to show you this really quickly here, if you don't mind. Let me see if I can. Just really quickly, let me just show you how the scheduling works. Essentially, schedules are here. You can create a new schedule, which will create this alternative page. So you can see on my front page is just a normal front page, but my election page is this special kind of election coverage, and you can see that right here. To create a new schedule, you just come in here and enter the schedule name, you enter the days of the week. This applicable date range is how you create what the date range of that particular page will be. So in this case, for election results, I can create one that is viable from October 17th to October 22nd, and it creates kind of a range of when that particular schedule will be active.
Great. On the series and collections slide, what is the latest block? Can you talk about how that latest block works?
Let me look. Let's see, series and collections. Okay, so right here, this is just a block using probably our headlines card that is showing just the most recent items of a particular section, and those are just included in the right rail of that section. So this is essentially an article page. Again, it's a collection details page, I should say. It's a collection details page, and on that particular section, we have a block in the right rail that is showing the most recent content for that section. So essentially, this is just another block that's on that page. One thing that I will mention really quickly about article pages is make sure that you are looking at utility regions. And again, since I have this up, I'm just going to show you this really quickly. Utility regions are a great thing if you're not aware of these. There's a lot of additional places where you can add content onto story pages or onto other types of asset pages. And you can just say, for example, the bottom of the article rail, I can specifically say only on articles, I would like this block for latest news to show up on the article page in the right rail. And so using utility regions, you can add that just to the article pages if you want to do something like that. Hopefully that's helpful.
Okay, this is not a question, it's a note from one of the participants. Just a note for datawrapper.de, you can link your chart or graph to a Google Doc, so it's easy to just update the Google Doc and the chart updates automatically. So that's a pretty cool tip.
That's great. I really appreciate you saying that, because I was kind of messing with that before the webinar and I didn't have time to specifically figure that out. So I didn't want to talk about it without having done it first. So I'm so glad you mentioned that. And remember, with data sheets and Google spreadsheets, you could have multiple people updating those at once. And so feeding that in through Data Wrapper will give you a place where multiple people can enter things on that Google spreadsheet, and then it gets updated on your site via that Data Wrapper embed widget. A really great way to go. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, it looks like that is it for our questions right now. So thank you everybody for entering those questions and comments. Christine, if you want to advance to the final slide. Thank you so much to Christine and Nick for this great presentation. Those are some awesome tips, and the Real Clear Wire looks like it's going to be a real benefit to all of our customers. So thank you, Nick, for sharing that with us. There are lots of, if you have questions about anything that we've talked about on this webinar, of course, reach out to our customer support department. Documentation is available at help.townnews.com. Support is available at 800-293-9576 or support.townnews.com. Our partner community is a great place to swap ideas with other Town News customers, and that's at community.townnews.com. And you can follow our service status at townnews.status.io. You can also follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, and sign up for, we have a wide variety of newsletters that you can sign up for by visiting townnews.com and clicking the news page, and scrolling down a little bit, it's in the sign up box is in the sidebar on our news page. Once again, thanks to everybody for joining us for this webinar, and thank you to Christine and Nick for such an awesome presentation. Really appreciate it. We will see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.